Yeah. Yeah, hello. I need to check to make sure that the volume is working properly, and also the speakers are working properly. Let me check for the speaker. Hmm. I hope everybody's doing all right today, uh, and I hope you're enjoying your Sunday and that you went to church. If your belief is Christianity, I hope you're able to go to church today and that you actually listen to what is said in church. If you did, that's good. Yeah, I'm trying to check to make sure that the speakers are working fine. Microphone. Okay, just want to make sure that the microphone is working all right. And also the speaker. Okay. Let's try and see what we got here. Okay. Yeah, let's see what we got here. The speakers are working fine. Okay, fine. Good. Hmm. Okay. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, good evening, good evening, good evening. Okay, the topic today is quitting after failing is not an option. You see, and I'm going to drop the link. Anybody can come up. Anyone can come up. I'm going to drop the link. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Quitting after failing is not an option. Um, One of the worst things that has happened to us as an individual is to quit. We have embarked in so many things in our lives. Our parents gave birth to us, and then they raised us up. Or during our growth, one of the things that we did was to go to kindergarten. From kindergarten to elementary, we went home, we did our homeworks because we don't want to repeat a class or fail a subject. We had this fear in us, fear to fail. Failure was not an option. to us. That is why every day, all I hear from people, from universities, from professors, from different folks in different walks of life, they all said one thing: quitting, that's failing is not an option. Failing is not an option. Every single one of them spoke on failing. They instilled that fear into us not to fail. We were told not to fail, that failing or failure is not an option. But there is also one thing that we were never taught. Growing up as little kids, and some of us did have this experience in our families. And that experience was actually what happens when you fail. I would say most of us were never raised in that belief that you can fail. Or sometimes, or most times, that failing does happen. And sometimes we were told, oh, if you fail, try again. But one thing we were never told was that quitting after failing is not an option. Because if you look at the great things that have happened today, the great inventions are the unfinished invention that was continued by the generation after. The reason why the generations after were able to continue from where the giants left was because the giants, when they failed, they never quit. They still continued, fought every tooth and nail to make sure, excuse me, to make sure that they did not continue or lapse or go away or disappear into the thin air just because they failed. No, the giants didn't do that. They actually didn't give up, or they lived to fight another day, or in this case, they lived to fight another day. Sometimes they never came back to that war, to that battle, but they left it for the generation that came after them to continue. And that is where we are today. And we're still inventing so many things. One of the greatest things that I've seen in this life or in my years of business was the amount of people that quit after they failed. In fact, statistically said that most people that started a business usually will quit or shut down that business or end that LLC 2 years after they started, which means almost 80% of the people that started a business never went past the first 2 years of actually launching the business. So it becomes a very sad thing. And that's why I did this program. Quitting after failing is not an option. When you failed in life, what you have to do is to dust yourself and start again or continue where you stopped. But most importantly, go back and fix that problem. Sometimes you do have let's say, if you've ever been involved in building a house, if you've ever built a house before, or you've started a house, there is something that the engineers, not the architect, I mean the general contractors and the subcontractors will do. They will tell you, oh, this mistake that we made, don't worry. The next, the people that are going to put finishing to the touches will correct it. And then when the people that will put that finish to the touches arrive after the interior people have left, they'll be like, no, we can't correct it. The people that did that mistake should have fixed it. But you know what? Since we can't correct it, the electrical guy will fix it or will correct it. And also your builders are telling you the same thing. They will be like, oh, no, 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 don't worry. The next people will fix it. And by the day of your closing of that house, that's when you will find out this is a big problem now. And they know it's a big problem, but they just choose not to fix it because they're trying to see if you can just give it up. Because they understand how much it will cost to go back to fix it. But the problem arose that you saw that issue at the very onset and you try to make them to fix it, but they choose not to fix it because they're trying to see what they can get away with. So the reason why I brought this analogy is because problem arise and we see problem, but the thing is that when we don't put pressure on people, that problem is not fixed. And at the end of the day, it's going to cost us more money to fix it. And the reason why I say this is because sometimes when we start a business, we see the problem in that business that we started. And we don't want to fix that problem right away. We want to push it down the road so that we'll fix it later on. Because somebody advised us and said, no, don't worry about it. This is not an issue. Don't worry about it. But tomorrow is going to be an issue. It's going to be an issue that will suffice and you can fix it. That will suffice and you can fix it. Now, that issue will require that you shut that business down because at that moment, you are going to be putting so much money to do this business. But because it was a small problem that went neglected but now it's become a big problem that is tearing the whole thing down. That is why, after being in business for such a long time, for close to 10 years, I do tell people, when you have a problem in business, get that problem resolved. Keep doing what you're doing, but fix that problem. If that problem requires that you have to shut the company down for a day or two, do it. If that problem requires that you have to give a product out for free to a customer, do it. Don't look at the cost and benefit. Which, when I say the cost, don't look at the cost of purchasing their product or the market value you would have sold that product in order to reap certain amount of profit, which is the benefit. Don't look at that, because what happens is that when you look at that, it will bite you and it hurts. So what you should do is that problem that you have in that business, that moment, right? Yeah, if you guys want to come on and join the podcast and the panel, you're welcome to join the panel. It's open to the public. You can join and let's talk about this. So that issue that you didn't fix that moment, right? That problem that you didn't fix that moment. What is going to happen is that now you have a bigger problem to deal with. But if you can take that money or take that product and mark it as a loss, or take that service and mark that service as a loss and go and fix that problem or satisfy that customer. Now you've taken somebody that is going to leave a bad review to your company and change that person's mind to leave a good review. You've solved a big problem that could have been neglected just like that, but amount to something bigger than you expected. So that is a big problem. Like I've always said, it might look small, but it's a big problem. But in case you didn't fix that problem, and this problem has become a bigger one, that's how companies go out of business. Companies give up, companies fold, and that 80% of companies that fold after the first 2 years of forming an LLC, it become part of that statistics. The same applies to many things, not just business. It's also applied to marriage. In a marriage, you see something big, something small, I'm sorry, and you choose not to fix it. Or you just don't want to overlook such a small thing, but you make a big deal out of it. Guess what happens? Now it becomes a problem. Or you see that small thing, instead of you to call your significant other to order, and so that you both of you can fix this problem, you just let it go because you don't want to hurt that person's feelings, or you don't want to appear a certain way. Now you've started a problem. You can't stop. And you now start kicking the problem down the road, kicking the can down the road. Just like I said, when you have uh, let me put it this way, a general contractor and the subcontractors that are working on your new house or new project or investment property, and they don't fix that problem that you saw. When they don't fix that problem that you saw and they kick it down the road, guess what happened? During the closing of that building, you're going to find out that it's a big problem. But now it will cost you more money because the company is going to deny it. They're going to argue with you, and then they might give you a little discount or a little closing cost, whatever. But later on, it's going to cost you 3, 4 times the price to fix it. So it's the same thing with marriage. But for a house, you can get mad and say, you know what, I'm going to sell this house, and you leave. You're not quitting, but you allowed a mistake to happen. You allowed a mistake to continue. You didn't stand on your 2 toes to force them to fix that mistake. It's the same way you didn't, or not standing on your 2 toes to force your relationship to correct itself. The same way you have a business. Instead of you to fix that business, then you become like a lackadaisical because you have certain volume of customers that come to you as patrons, but then you fail to fix a problem that might go online, a problem that might be reported to the news channel, a problem that might be reported to somebody that would then open it to the air, or that's to the airwaves, and cause an everlasting damage or a lasting damage to your reputation and company. So when you go into anything, be it business or relationship, it's always very good to sit down, make sure that you yourself has the psychological requirements to embark on such a big project. Because one thing about business is this: when you own a business, you serve the public. When you have a family, you set a legacy. The reason why this channel or this channel of mine is about business and relationship is because I love to colorate and to bring the coloration between business and relationship, because they both work hand in hand. If you have a business that fails and you have a family, guess what? The failure of your business can impact your family significantly. Quitting after failing is not an option, but you don't know what this other spouse will do. They might quit on you because you failed, But you might not quit on yourself because you have the resilience, you have the tenacity to continue. But the other person may not have the tenacity because maybe they came into that marriage not for love, but for the security and comfort that you may have brought, or that you may have exposed them at the very beginning of that courtship or relationship. So they want to maintain that lifestyle. It's the same way that a business wants you to always put input every day into it. And the input that business requires is 12 hours of input. And that input is continuous. And a slight mistake can end it. But one thing that makes business different from relationship is this: when that business ends, you can start another business and then learn from the experience of your past business. But one thing about relationship is that the damage that is left is everlasting, especially if kids are involved. The kids are traumatized. And when kids are traumatized due to the process of that divorce or the process of the ending of the relationship, they sometimes take it on one parent or both parents, and it becomes a dysfunctional family. So, before something leads to that ending of that relationship because you've failed in something, don't quit easily. Don't quit. One thing that do end things after my many years of exposure to relationships and current relationship is this: I have come to the understanding that when people quit, right, they quit because they're just so scared to sit down and confront their demons. I have come to learn that in many a case, all I have to do is to sit down and say to this individual, what you did, I don't like. Let's not do it again. And express yourself and move on. If you have to dwell in it, dwell in it. And know that tomorrow is a new day, tomorrow is a new chapter. But the problem in life never stops. Because one of the reasons why most of us quit a relationship is because we say that we think that once something is addressed, that it can never happen again or it shouldn't happen again. But then we forget that as humans, we are bound to repeat history. And then sometimes people will say, but why should I have to go through this over and over again? It's like your job. You go to your job, and then I ask people, okay, you've been in a job for 1 year. You've been in a job for 10 years. You've been in a job for 20 years. Whenever you go to that job, 60% of the time, or that's a high number. Let me just say 20% of the time, the same thing happens. It's a routine. 20% of what goes on in your company is a routine every day. There might not be that many new challenges every day. You sit down, you stay on that computer, you key in and key out, you put in and put out. The same process. If you're an engineer, you're doing the same life cycle. You're doing the same life cycle. So, what makes you think that in a relationship you might not get the same thing? You might tell somebody, don't do this today, and tomorrow they repeat it. And you're like, you're not a child, you can do it. But guess what? That person that you're telling to not do the same thing over and over, it has some insanity in them. Yes. But you also have an insanity in you for thinking that you can just stop that and it will just go away. No, what happened is this: when that thing happened, you find a different way to tackle the same problem. And sometimes problems like that go away. If you look at our ancestors, One thing that made the relationship of our ancestors long lasting, or maybe people that have been in relationship for a long time long lasting, is because they find different ways to deal with the same problem that arise from their spouse, from their children. And this is what I do say to myself: we should never quit on our children, because we don't. Most of the times we don't. But why should we quit on our spouse? The ratio of people quitting on their children and their spouse is almost 1,000 to 1. If you ask me, that's an opinion, that's not a fact. It's almost 1,000 to 1 of people that quit on their children and their spouse. So of every 1,000 spouse that are quit on, a child is quit on. Meaning that most people will do anything to raise their kids. Most people will do anything to make sure that their kids are raised, even though when that child is just a pain in your butt, you still put those resources, you still put those time, you still put those sleepless nights, you still put everything that it takes you to input into that child to make that child something of a better tomorrow, a contributing piece of the society. But the thing is this: you will not put the same effort to make sure that your family, your wife or your husband is okay. As soon as you get mad at them, you run into the courthouse to go and quit. And the problem becomes, some of us don't want to go to parents. We don't want to go to family members to fix this issue. One of the detrimental factor in this case is usually the fact that today we vet our own spouse just like we vet our own businesses. We shouldn't vet our spouse, but we should learn a business. But we shouldn't vet our spouse. Spouse are supposed to be vetted by people that know us, people that understand us. They will best choose somebody that fits us. And then when it comes to business, before you start a business, you should go learn that business, understand that business, go in depth into it, pursue something in that business. Because if you have to go through 12 years or to 16 years to get employed to become a mechanical engineer, to become a nurse, why do you think that is okay to start a business that you have no experience in at all? Experience whatsoever. You have no experience in this business, and then you said, okay, I'm going to start a business and I'm going to run it. But knowing fact that you spent 16 years of your life, 16 years of your life to be an engineer, 16 years of your life to be a nurse, 16 years of your life to be an accountant, 16 years of your life to earn a professional degree, and you can just wake up overnight and step into a business and it's all good. Now you're good at it. You're an expert on something you have no knowledge of how it operates. It's the same thing with a relationship. You meet somebody, you didn't study about them, you don't know their family history, you don't know if they are criminals, if they are drug dealers, if they are prostitutes, or if they have certain health issues in the family. And you just embark because you don't want somebody to tell you, no, that person is not good for you. You just embark and start into a relationship with them or get pregnant and wish it can figure itself out. It cannot figure itself out. No, it cannot figure itself out, because the reason why business cannot figure itself out by you putting so much money into it, or mortgaging your house to start a business you have no experience in. It's the same way a marriage will mess up because you are getting into a marriage that you have no experience in. And then the question might become, okay, how do I get experience in marriage? Number one, you have to start learning from your childhood. Parents supposed to have taught you how to be a wife. Parents are supposed to have taught you how to be a husband. They will teach you, they're supposed to have taught you the requirements of both sides. No, the requirement from both sides. Yeah, if you guys want to come on panel, you can click on the link and come on panel. The panel is open to everybody. You don't have to be on camera if you want to join. So relationship, that's the same way that goes with relationship. You can't just start and then back into a relationship you have no idea about, you don't even know anything about, because those things that you're supposed to have learned, learn how to cook, learn how to clean, learn how to keep things neat, learn how to relate with people, have understanding of relationship, have understanding of culture. If you're a religious person, have understanding of religion. But culture is the most important is the most important essence of a relationship. You have to have a knowledge and understanding of culture. You have to understand the culture and the tradition of your people before you can embark into a relationship, because most cultures on earth, marriage is the bedrock of all of them. Almost every culture on earth, marriage is the bedrock of all of them. Because if you have a business, your business, no matter how good you do in business, except if you want to own a company and after you've passed, that company should go to the government as a donation, and then the government should run your company, or a charity organization to run your company, um, or a trust to run your company. But if you want to pass on legacy, you're going to have children. So your time dedicated in making that business a, a stable of the society is the same way you have to put in that time to raise kids that will then take over that company, and teach your kids how to be able to run company just like they should be able to run society. And then what they will do is installing them what you should also do at the end is to install in them the culture, because their understanding the culture of your company will make it easy for them to transfer your company to the next generation, because most companies on earth fail at the third generation. The third generation is what destroys company. But the reason why third generation destroy companies is because the first generation made a mistake. I speak on this with every fiber of my body because I know a lot of families, especially back home in Nigeria, that started business that was businesses that were nationwide, conquerors. But as soon as that first generation passed, everything fell apart. And the reason why it fell apart is because the first generation failed to create a culture, to carve a culture. Because if you carve out a culture, or you instill in your company the culture of your ancestors, make your children to understand culture and business culture as well. What they will do is that they themselves, because this culture is written down, is known, is read out, everybody in that organization understand the culture. The third generation will come and do better. They will add more input to the culture. They will add more input to it, and they will transfer it to the fourth generation. That's why you see big organizations that survive today. Big organizations that survive because of the culture that was left behind by the first generation that created that company. We can talk about John Deere. We can talk about Roosevelt. We can talk about Rockefellers. We can talk about Carnegie. We can talk about so many great companies of yesteryears that their companies are still doing great today. Even the Vanderbilts, one of the reasons why they are doing great is because they wrote down the culture. They had culture, they had a vision. They understand what they want their companies to do. They understand the contribution that they want the companies to make to the society. That's what I'm talking about. Contribution that the company makes to the society, the impact of that company to the society. That's the same way marriage is. If you want to be able to build an everlasting marriage, a marriage that will stand the test of time with the children that will prolong it, that will take into the next generation, the generation after that, the generation after that, and then continue, is that you have to have a vision, what you want your family to be like. You have to have a vision of what you want your children and the roles that you want them to play in that family to the furtherance of that family. You should have those things in place. So what happened is that when those children come into that family, being the fact that they understand the projection of this family, they understand the culture that is laid down, they understand the mission of the of the family by the first generation, they will carry it on. And then when they have their own children, they will tell their children, because God be so kind with you and life that you live to see your second generation, your third generation. As the patriarch or matriarch of that family, you are able to install and make your grandkids understand the mission and the culture of this company, so that they in tune, because they had from the first generation, right? They in tune with then sell that mission to the fourth generation, and they will raise them around the culture. That is why I always talk about culture, because culture is the most profound theory or experiment that God designed that holds community. That's why if you go to a place like Nigeria and Igbo land have lasted for over 300 and something thousand years. The reason why the Igbo people have lasted for so long is because of the culture. The culture is so strong that there has been so many storms that have graced through that culture, and it still stands. Even though the empires of yesteryears that came and left still don't like that part of Nigeria, because they held firm to their culture and to their gods and ancestors. That's why it still survived. So, when you take away culture in anything, that is the beginning of the end of that stuff. Once culture is removed, it's the beginning and the end of that organization, of that entity. It's the beginning and the end of it, because not having culture destroys the mission. That's why quitting after failing is not an option, because the culture gives you the understanding that you can't quit. Because when you quit on your community, the devastation is severe, and your name cannot be written on the stones that bound that community. But as a son and daughter of that community, you want to hold firm, because you are proud of your community, and you do not want to be the one that will be blamed. Yeah, Victor, I think I sent the if you click on the link that I sent to you, you see where it says StreamYard. If you click on the StreamYard, right? Now, Victor, if you're online and you want to come in, right? If you come into the stuff, look at the chat room, you're gonna see StreamYard. Click on the StreamYard, it will bring you into the room. Then you can come online if you wish to. Yeah. So what I'm saying is this: You have to be able to, that's what culture does. So culture gives you a sense of belonging because you have a mission. One thing that humans don't like to do, especially men do not like to disappoint their community because they want to leave their name on the forefront of the community. They want to die for their land and they don't mind sacrificing so that their wife, the children, and the women could be protected. That's what men do. That's what men live for. Uh, Men don't live because they want to achieve certain or attain certain age or achieve certain thing in life. The greatest achievement that a man has is the sacrificial of himself for the greater good of his society, his community, and his offspring. That is it. But at the same time, an undermined man wouldn't accept that. Which means if he's undermined by somebody in his family, intentionally undermined, no, that is not him being a hero. He has to checkmate that because undermining a man is not him being a hero. Being a hero is that he stops any external force from getting to his community. That is the virtue of a hero. That is the virtue of a hero. So, quitting after failing is not an option, like I said, because what happened is this: when you quit it, you leave a lot to the open. When you quit a business, you leave a lot to the open. When you quit a relationship, you leave a lot to the open. Oh God, goodness, you don't quit on your children because it is detrimental. That is why the reason why kids today don't have the sense of culture is because those that will teach them the sense of culture are not in place to do that. I can't imagine how somebody will have sexual intercourse with somebody else out of the fanfare of emotion, get pregnant, the relationship ends, and then that individual, being a woman, cultivates around her this protection, then to raise a child by herself. It's not a good thing. Every child deserves a two parent if they both are alive. And the reason why every child deserves a two parents or needs a two parents for their growth is because each parent brings certain input because they are not of the same sex. And due to the fact they have not the same sex identity, that's gender. What it does basically is this. Excuse me, gender. What it does basically is this: the child only have the perspective of one, not the perspective of other. And then the upbringing of that child is one-sided. The child's exposure is one-sided. And when this child grows up, it becomes a problem to the society. That child might be successful in their business because this is the topic of this channel. It's part of the topic of this channel. People tend to be successful where they earn income, but fail where they nourish and where they spend that income. That is very sad. People tend to stay longer where they earn income because of the reward, but then fail to last more than 2 years where they put that income because they later reward. Because the reward is not instantaneous. The reward is not in 2 weeks. The reward is not the 15th of the month. So to them, if if the thing can't work the way they want it to work, then they can be in this. They quit. They quit. So it troubles so much that we can earn a paycheck. We can earn an income. We can do everything that we can to safeguard where we earn income, but we can't do anything to protect where we spend that income. The reward to labor is instant, but the reward to legacy is postponed, is deferred, is in the future. And the real fact that there is nobody to have explained this to us is the reason why we have so many broken businesses, we have so many broken marriages. Because the thing is this, when it comes to business, the reward to business is not instant. Because in business, when you build a business, you don't earn a paycheck right away. Yes, suddenly in businesses within few months, you start reaping the reward of what you sow. But you don't get bulk of that reward. You just getting peanut of it as you go. It starts increasing and it starts increasing and it goes up from there. That's the reward of a business. But it's in that business also, some businesses require a whole full year, 2, 3, 4 years of input before of production before it gets to a full profit. But that doesn't mean that there is no income for expenditure or the income that you're getting off of that business is not meeting what you need. No, it is meeting what you need because you're earning income. It's meeting what you need. But the problem is to you that that business in paper or on paper is not profitable yet. It has not been marked by a black ink. It's been on red ink. Because the reason why it's on red ink is this: you pay your mortgage, you're paying everything that you need to pay, you're taking care of business, you're buying and selling, you replenishing your order. But the problem is there is no net profit that can actually allow you to have to pay tax to the IRS, meaning that you've not crossed certain profit margin, so that the IRS will look at you and say, okay, now you have to pay tax because you've attained profit. You've not reached that level. So that is why you see companies like, if you look at a company called Uber, Uber has been in business for almost 14 years, right? But for the first time in 14 years, they reported a profit, and their profit was $1 billion. But Uber has had revenues of 50 billion, 60 billion, 65 billion. But for the first time, they actually were written on with the black ink, which means that for the first time, they've attained profit. So that's how business is. W2, when you earn a W2, you always have a profit. You might have savings where certain money goes in. If you're smart, you buy things you cut your coat according to your size, because your income should be that you spend 80% of your income and you have 20% saved up, right, of every paycheck. So every month, 70 to 80% of your income goes through various taxes, credit cards, the upkeep of your family, your residential, everything. People you have to send money to, people you have to give money to, friends that will take money from you and never pay back. Yes, that and the ones that will take and pay you back, and family members too. Those are part of your expenditure. But that 20%, 30% is something you keep and you never touch. That is profit. That is profit. That is profit. Like I tell people that go to church, when you want to pay your tax, you don't pay your tax based on how much you take home to. No, you pay your tax based on how much you put on your service in your service account that month. For those that go to church, you pay your tax based on how much you have left after everything has been done that month. If you only have $200 left, then you pay your tax based on the $200 that is left. If you only have $50 left, you pay your tax based on the $50 that you left. You don't pay your tax. I'm sorry, you don't pay your tithe based on the $5,000 you were paid. No, you're going to break your neck or break your bank or break your back. You pay your tithe based on that. Yes, the government does take your tax before everything else. It's because the government is not your is a whole total different beast. Its own. It's a total different beast. So your profit margin is based on what is left. So it's the same way you have to teach your family, teach your children, teach everybody that is your offspring, that is your legacy, the culture of the company that you're starting. And also instill in them the culture of your family. Because when they understand the culture of the family, they can then be able to preserve the legacy that is laid before them. And one thing that we humans do very, very well is that when cultures are set in place, we inherit it. Because every human being has a great respect for their culture. Because they understand that it's the legacy that is left to them by their ancestors. It's a legacy that is left to them by their ancestors. So, what do I mean in all this? What I mean is this. You can't be quitting after you have failed. You can't quit your marriage because you failed. You can't quit a company because you failed. If you didn't learn that company, employ somebody that knows it. Somebody that will teach you. Employ an expert. Employ somebody with experience to come and run that company while you sit back and learn and let that person run it. If you think you can listen, then you fire yourself and then get that person to hire as an employee. Then you become employee of your own company, at least for 1 year or two. Then you learn how to run that company under you, under somebody else. Yes, the name of the company, everything is under your name. You still own the company, but take yourself away from it and make yourself an employee. And then you will be able to understand how business is run. Then you can come back and still maintain and then take over your position again. And then you can be able to humble yourself and understand. I have a company, a transportation company, Kennedy Electrical Transport. One thing about that company is this. I've had 80 years of a previous company that I owned, that I still operate. Not that I own, I still it's not a previous company. It's a current company, I like transportation, but a Kennedy Electrical Transportation is going to take over it. But one thing, the only thing that makes it so easy for me to be able to understand the way this business is run is because growing up as a little kid, I was raised in that kind of business. I saw it by myself. I was there. I saw the operational system. I participated in the operation since I was like 9 years old. So I ran through the whole 10 yards. And guess what happened? When I started transportation business, I already understand how it operates, how it is run, because I've been in it for a long time. I understood the logistic part of it, and I also understand the passenger part of it. And it was easy for me. Even as an engineer, I started this company. And I never regretted it because I understand and know what transportation is to the community and to the society and to the world at large. So, like I'm saying, it's good to have experience in something before you embark on it. Don't embark on something because you think you can do a good job in it. Don't embark on something because you think you've seen other people do it, that you can do it. No. Embark on it because you've had that experience, that input. You understand the customer service. Because one thing about company and corporations is that it's done in a very broad way. There is the operational, there is the logistics, and then there is the service. But right in front of the service is that back store, which is operational and logistics, which is the back end. But the front end is the customer service, which is the most vital. That is what people see. But the backbone is the back end. In that back end is something you cannot take for granted. So at the end of the day, they all work in tandem, meaning that each one of those have a serious contributing factor to the organization. The same way a mother, children, and the father all have significant contributing factor. The front end of every family is the children. The back end is the father and the mother. Just like in organization, like I said, you have operation and logistics at the back end. But on the front end is customer service. Just like the front end of a family is the children and the back end is the father and the mother. That's what it is. That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. So we as a people have to understand that that family is not business. Business is not family. But what happened is that family, being an institution and a community service, is what powers the business, is what determines if the business will continue or die. So when I hear people say that family, now marriage is a business, I'm in total disagreement. I made a thing one time and I said, and I agreed with somebody that it was a business. But after so many research and understanding from the traditional side of it, the spiritual side of it, and the legal side of it, is an institution, is a community. It's not a business because marriage builds community. Community supports business. If there is no marriage, there is no community. And if there is no community, there is no business. Business cannot function if there is no community. So the thing is this, right? It cannot, uh, so you cannot have one or the other. No, family cannot function. No, I'm sorry, business cannot function without the support of family. So there cannot be a front end without back end, because a lot is done on the back end of a company before the front end is then established. It's the same way. A lot is done on the back end of a family before the front end comes up, because of the back end produces the children carry the society supports the business. So without any of this, business can never happen. So marriage is not a business, it's the support to a business. Society is run because of family. Businesses are conducted and last forever because of family support. So I am so happy to have laid this down. It's a very short program, but guess what? It's a very good one. I really enjoy it. Um, I think I'll be here next Sunday or this. I want to go back to every other Sunday, but I gotta look at how things play out to see if I will continue with every Sunday. If not, I'll go back to every other Sunday. So thank you guys for listening, and I will continue with this. This is something that I like to talk about business and how we can conduct business, how businesses are done, the relationship between family and business, but also how businesses can be sustained. I'm gonna go into certain discussion that has to do with business the next time we come up, because I want to divert into it, digest into it, and also discuss the market and the purchases and logistics and transportation and so many things and engineering. I have so many things to talk about. Thank you so much for listening, and you guys have a good night. Bye bye.